what does it really take to lead a nation? And maybe more importantly, what happens when that leadership, well, when it just falls apart? Imagine this pivotal moment in history, a time of huge change where everything, the whole fate of a people, it hinges on maybe a prophet's word, a warrior's initial strength, and then eventually the heart of this unlikely shepherd.
It's a time of massive transformation, really. You see these ancient traditions kind of giving way to something totally new, and it's driven by, well, both divine will and these deeply human choices.
Choices with sometimes pretty devastating consequences.
Exactly. So today we're taking that deep dive into a foundational text, the first book of Samuel. And it's not just, dry history. It's this gripping story about Israel's shift, quite a tumultuous shift, from just a loose bunch of tribes led by judges.
Right, like a confederation.
Yeah, exactly. To United Kingdom with its very first kings. You've given us this incredibly rich, dramatic source material.
And our mission today is to really cut through to the core, pull out the most compelling stories, the key moments, and the lessons that honestly still resonate today.
We're here to unpack the drama, the human struggles, the surprising insights woven into this story, so you walk away understanding it on a deeper level.
Get ready for, well, miraculous births, divine interventions, epic battles, and these really human struggles for power, for purpose. We're going to unpack it all.
So our journey into this period, it actually starts not with a king, but with a woman's personal struggle, Hannah's anguish. We meet her, and she's described as bitter of soul. She's facing constant taunting because, as the text bluntly says, the Lord had shut up her womb. It's raw.
Yeah, incredibly poignant, and she pours out her heart in this silent prayer at Shiloh. She's so deeply into it that the priest, Eli, he actually thinks she's drunk.
Right. And her response is just so powerful. I am a woman of a sorrowful spirit. I have poured out my soul before the Lord. And this raw honesty, it leads Eli to give her a blessing, a moment of sort of unexpected grace.
And the blessing works. Hannah conceives, names her son Samuel, which means perfectly, because I have asked him of the Lord.
And then fulfilling her vow, once he's weaned, she brings him back to Shiloh. Makes this significant sacrifice, bullocks, flour, wine, and dedicates him to serve God, quote, all the days of his life.
What a commitment from a mother, truly giving her most precious gift.
And it's right against this backdrop, this incredible dedication, that the story gives us this really stark, unsettling contrast. While Samuel is there, dedicated, growing, in favor both with the Lord and also with men, Eli's own sons, Hophni and Phinehas, well, they're corrupt.
Yeah, the text calls them sons of Belial, wicked, worthless men who knew not the Lord. They're abusing their power as priests, taking the best parts of the sacrifices by force. It's shocking, really.
It is, and it's in this kind of spiritual low point, a time when the word of the Lord was precious. There was no open vision, that this new voice emerges. We get this amazing moment. The Lord calls young Samuel multiple times in the night. At first, he thinks it's Eli.
Right, he keeps running to Eli.
Exactly. And Eli, despite his own failings, his eyes growing dim, he finally realizes what's happened. He guides the boy, go, lie down, and it shall be, if he call thee, that thou shalt say, speak, Lord, for thy servant heareth.
And through that direct interaction, Samuel, just a child, is established as a true prophet, a direct line to God when everything else felt silent.
This powerful prophetic foundation centered on Samuel. It really sets the stage for this huge transition in Israel, moving away from God as their direct ruler, a theocracy.
Towards wanting a human king.
Precisely. And it kicks off with this massive national crisis.
Right. Israel gets absolutely hammered by the Philistines in battle. Huge losses.
Yeah, thousands slain.
Yeah.
So in desperation, the elders have this idea, let's bring the Ark of the Covenant, the symbol of God's presence, into the next battle. Maybe that will save us.
A kind of divine weapon.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
But the strategy just backfires spectacularly. The Philistines are initially terrified. They cry out, God is coming to the camp. They remember the plagues in Egypt.
But they rally.
They do. And the result is catastrophic for Israel. Utter defeat. A staggering number of soldiers killed, something like 30,000 footmen. And the unthinkable happens.
The ark is captured.
The Ark of God is captured by the Philistines.
Wow. And the fallout is immediate. Eli, the old priest, 98 years old, blind. He hears the news. The ark is taken, and his two corrupt sons are dead.
And he falls backward off his seat, breaks his neck, and dies. Just devastating.
Even more poignant, his daughter-in-law, Phinehas' wife, she's pregnant, goes into labor from the shock. She names her son Ichabod.
Meaning the glory is departed from Israel. because, as she says, the Ark of God was taken. It just perfectly captures the nation's absolute despair.
So the ark then goes on this wild journey through Philistine cities.
Yeah. First to Ashdod, they put it in the temple of their god, Dagon, and the next morning, Dagon's statue has fallen face down before the Ark.
They prop it back up.
They do. But the next morning, it's fallen again. This time, its head and hands are broken off. Only the stump is left.
Wow. A clear message.
And then painful tumors, these emerods, start afflicting the Philistines in Ashdod, then Gath, then Ekron. It's like the Ark itself is toxic to them, a divine power they just cannot handle.
So they realize they need to get rid of it.
Right. They consult their priests and diviners, the advice. Send it back with a trespass offering. Golden images of the tumors and the mice that were plaguing their land, 5 of each, for their 5 lords.
How do they send it back?
On a brand new cart, pulled by 2 nursing cows, milch kine, that have never been yoked. And crucially, their calves are kept away from them. The idea is, if these cows go straight towards Israelite territory, against their natural instinct to return to their calves, then it's truly God's doing.
The test.
The divine test. And it works. The cows head straight for Beth Shemesh in Israel, lowing as they went, not turning aside.
So the ark is back, but the tragedy isn't over, is it?
No. Shockingly, thousands of men in Beth Shemesh are struck down and die simply for looking into the ark, a reminder of its immense holiness and danger.
So it ends up staying in Kirjath Jearim for 20 years.
20 long years. And this whole sequence, the defeats, Samuel's sons becoming corrupt like Eli's, the ark's capture, its chaotic return, it all fuels this growing unrest. The Israelites lament, but then they demand something specific.
They want a king, like all the nations.
Exactly. And this is a huge moment. The Lord tells Samuel, they haven't rejected you, Samuel, they've rejected me from reigning over them.
Wow. And Samuel warns them, doesn't he? He gives this stark prediction about what having a king will really mean.
Oh, absolutely. He lays out the manner of the king. He'll take your sons for his army, your daughters for his household, the best of your fields, 1/10 of your grain and sheep. He paints a picture of serious oppression.
And he warns them, you will cry out in that day because of your king, and the Lord will not hear you. A powerful warning about wanting to be like everyone else instead of trusting God's way.
A really potent lesson about power and conformity. But despite all that,
The people insist. Nay, but we will have a king over us. They want someone to judge them, lead them, fight their battles.
and so, reluctantly, God allows it. The stage is set for Israel's first king,
So who gets chosen? The people want a king, and they get Saul.
Saul. He's described as impressive, handsome, head and shoulders taller than anyone else. But he's sort of an unlikely pick initially. He's just out looking for his father's lost donkeys when he runs into Samuel.
But it's not really chance, is it?
Not at all. The Lord had already told Samuel the day before, tomorrow about this time I will send thee a man out of the land of Benjamin, and thou shalt anoint him to be captain over my people Israel.
So Samuel was expecting him.
Yes, he secretly anoints Saul with oil, gives him these specific signs to confirm it's from God meeting men with bread, finding the donkeys, prophesying with prophets.
And the text says the Spirit of the Lord comes upon him, turns him into another man, gives him what he needs for leadership.
It's this dramatic, almost overnight change.
Yeah.
Later, he's chosen publicly by Lot, though, interestingly, he initially hides among the stuff. Maybe humility, maybe nerves.
Could be either. But when they find him and present him, people are impressed by his height, and they shout, God save the king.
His first big test comes quickly. The Ammonites are besieging Jabesh-Gilead, threatening terrible cruelty.
And how does Saul react?
The Spirit of God came upon Saul. His anger is kindled. He dramatically cuts up oxen, sends the pieces throughout Israel, saying, whoever doesn't follow Saul and Samuel, this is what will happen to his oxen. It works. He rallies the tribes.
And leads them to a big victory.
A decisive victory. And this really solidifies his kingship. They confirm him as king publicly at Gilgal with sacrifices and celebrations. A very promising start.
But that promise, it doesn't last long, does it? We get his first major failure quite soon.
Sadly, yes. Before a battle with the Philistines at Gilgal, Samuel had told Saul, wait 7 days for me. I'll come and offer the sacrifices.
Okay, simple instruction.
Seems simple.
Mm-hmm.
But Samuel is delayed. The Israelite soldiers are getting scared, starting to scatter. The Philistines are gathering. The pressure mounts.
And Saul caves.
He caves. He says, I forced myself, therefore, and offered a burnt offering. He takes the priestly duty upon himself.
Not just a small mistake, then. It's about obedience under pressure, trusting God's timing versus taking control yourself.
Precisely. And Samuel arrives right as he finishes. The rebuke is instant and severe. Thou hast done foolishly. Thou hast not kept the commandment. Now thy kingdom shall not continue.
Wow, that's quick. The beginning of the end already.
It is. Samuel declares right then, the Lord hath sought him a man after his own heart. The search for Saul's replacement has already begun, spiritually speaking.
And then comes the final blow, the incident with the Amalekites.
Yeah, the command from God via Samuel is explicit. Go and utterly destroy the Amalekites. Spare nothing and no one man, woman, child, ox, sheep, camel, donkey. Total judgment for their past sins against
A
Israel.
harsh command, but clear.
Very clear. But Saul disobeys again. He defeats the Amalekites, but he spares their king Agag. And he keeps the best of the sheep and of the oxen, the choice spoils.
What's his excuse this time?
He claims the soldiers wanted to keep the best animals to sacrifice them to the Lord in Gilgal, trying to put a religious spin on disobedience.
And Samuel sees right through it.
Completely. This leads to that incredibly powerful confrontation. Samuel asks rhetorically, hath the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord?
And the famous line.
Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice. It cuts right to the heart of it. God wants obedience, a submitted heart, not just outward religious acts or self-serving justifications.
It's a timeless lesson, really. True obedience matters more than anything else.
Absolutely. And the judgment is final. Because thou hast rejected the word of the Lord, he hath also rejected thee from being king.
And then Samuel himself deals with Agag.
Yes, Samuel calls for Agag and hewed Agag in pieces before the Lord in Gilgal, a grim, decisive act. And after that, the text says Samuel came no more to see Saul until the day of his death, though he mourned for him.
What a tragic end to that relationship, and a devastating turn for Israel's first king. His reign just unravels due to disobedience.
So Saul's kingdom is essentially forfeit, even though he's still on the throne. And the narrative pivots. We move to David. And this is where you really see God's choice playing out, picking the most unlikely person. The Lord sends Samuel, who's still grieving over Saul, to Bethlehem, to the house of Jesse.
Right, to find the new king among Jesse's sons.
Exactly. And Samuel, well, he's human. He sees Eliab, the oldest, tall and impressive, and thinks, surely the Lord's anointed is before him. He's judging by appearance.
Just like people did with Saul initially.
Right. But the Lord gives this incredibly important correction, a principle for all time. Look not on his countenance or on the height of his stature, because I have refused him. For the Lord seeth not as man seeth, for man looketh on the outward appearance, but the Lord looketh on the heart.
That's such a key verse. It's all about the heart.
It is. So 7 of Jesse's sons pass before Samuel, but none are chosen. Samuel asks, are here all 8 children?
And Jesse says, well, there's the youngest. He's out keeping the sheep. David.
They send for him. He's described as ruddy and withal of a beautiful countenance and goodly to look to. And the Lord says, arise, anoint him, for this is he.
So Samuel anoints David right there among his brothers.
He does. And significantly, the text says, the Spirit of the Lord came upon David from that day forward, a transfer of divine empowerment.
And at the same time,
the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and an evil spirit from the Lord troubled him. A stark contrast setting up the conflict to come. Saul is now plagued by this tormenting spirit, leading to paranoia and despair.
And David's first step onto the national stage is legendary. David and Goliath.
Absolutely iconic. The Philistines are back, camped for battle. And they have this champion, Goliath of Gath, a giant, maybe over 9 feet tall, covered in bronze armor, carrying this massive spear.
Terrifying.
Utterly. He comes out every day for 40 days, taunting the Israelite army, challenging anyone to single combat to decide the battle. And the entire Israelite army, including Saul, is paralyzed with fear.
Enter David.
Enter David. He's just bringing provisions like cheese and bread for his brothers in the army. He hears Goliath's taunts, sees the fear, and he's indignant. Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?
He has a totally different perspective.
Completely. He talks about how God delivered him from a lion and a bear while he was protecting his father's sheep. He sees this giant as just another obstacle God will help him overcome.
Saul hears about this confident young shepherd.
He does. David is brought before Saul. He volunteers to fight Goliath. Saul tries to give him his own armor, but it doesn't fit. It's too cumbersome. David rejects it.
He sticks with what he knows.
His shepherd's staff, his sling, and he picks up 5 smooth stones from the brook. That's it.
And his declaration to Goliath.
It's incredible. Goliath mocks him. Am I a dog that thou comest to me with staves? But David replies, thou comest to me with a sword and with a spear and with a shield. But I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied. The battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands.
Pure faith against pure might.
And faith wins. David slings one stone. It sinks into Goliath's forehead. The giant falls face down.
And David uses Goliath's own sword.
Runs over, takes Goliath's heavy sword, and cuts off his head. The Philistines see their champion fall, they panic, and they flee. The Israelites pursue and win a massive victory.
An unbelievable moment. David becomes an instant national hero.
He does. But that fame immediately causes problems. The women are celebrating the victory, singing.
Saul hath slain his thousands, and David his 10,000.
Exactly, and that line just ignites Saul's jealousy. The text says Saul was very wroth, and he eyed David from that day forward.
It's the beginning of Saul's obsession.
A destructive obsession. Soon after, while David is playing the harp to soothe Saul's troubled spirit, Saul twice tries to pin him to the wall with his javelin.
Just outright attempts to murder him.
Yes, and Saul's fear of David grows explicitly because the Lord was with him and was departed from Saul. It shows how envy and fear twist a leader's mind.
He even tries to use his daughters, Merab and then Michal, as a trap, right?
Yeah, he offers Merab, then retracts it, then offers Michal, whom David loves. But instead of a normal dowry, he asks for 100 Philistine foreskins, hoping David will be killed trying to get them.
A gruesome plan.
It is. But David, being David, goes out with his men and comes back with 200 Philistine foreskins. So Saul has to give him Michal, but now he hates and fears David even more. He becomes David's enemy continually.
But amidst all this darkness and danger for David, there's this bright spot. Jonathan.
Saul's own son, Jonathan. Their friendship is one of the most beautiful parts of the story. Jonathan loves David as his own soul.
Even though David is technically his rival for the throne?
Exactly. Jonathan repeatedly warns David about Saul's plots. He even speaks up to Saul, reminding him how David risked his life against Goliath and did nothing wrong. They make this deep covenant, this pact of loyalty.
And their farewell is so moving.
It really is. Jonathan devises this plan with arrows to signal whether it's safe for David to return or if he must flee for good. The signal is bad news, and their parting in the field, weeping, shows the depth of their bond. It's loyalty that transcends family ties and political ambition. Truly remarkable.
So David becomes a fugitive, on the run for years.
Years. And this period is a real crucible for him. It shapes him profoundly. He flees to Nob, to the priest Ahimelech. He's desperate, asks for bread.
And gets the holy showbread.
Yes, the bread reserved for priests, because there's no other. And he also gets Goliath's sword, which was kept there.
But someone sees this.
Unfortunately, yes. Doeg the Edomite, one of Saul's chief herdsmen, is there. He later reports it all to Saul.
Leading to terrible consequences.
Horrific consequences. Saul, in a fit of rage and paranoia, orders the execution of all the priests at Nob. When his own guards refuse, Doeg carries it out, slaughtering 85 priests and then destroying the entire city, men, women, children, animals. Just brutal. Only one priest's son, Abiathar, escapes and joins David.
David must have felt responsible.
He did. He tells Abiathar, I have occasioned the death of all the persons of thy father's house. A heavy burden. David then has to flee further, even into Philistine territory, to Gath.
Gath, where Goliath was from. Risky.
Very risky. The servants of King Achish recognize him. Is not this David the king of the land? Do they not sing one to another of him in dances, saying, Saul hath slain his thousands and David his 10,000?
So David's cornered. How does he escape?
He pretends to be insane. He starts scribbling on the city gates, letting saliva run down his beard. He acts completely mad.
And Achish buys it.
Yeah, Kish basically says, do I need more madmen? Get him out of here. So David escapes.
Incredible. Where does he go then?
He finds refuge in the cave of Adullam. And there, others start joining him, his family, and then this group of about 400 men described as everyone in distress, everyone in debt, and everyone who is discontented.
A real band of misfits?
A band of misfits, yeah. And David becomes their captain. It's here his leadership really develops under pressure. But even leading these desperate men, David shows remarkable character, especially towards Saul.
This is where he spares Saul's life.
Twice. It's extraordinary. The first time is in a cave at En-Gedi. Saul goes into this large cave to cover his feet, likely meaning to relieve himself. David and his men are hiding deeper inside.
The perfect opportunity.
His men urge him, this is the day the Lord told you he'd deliver your enemy into your hand. But David just secretly cuts off a corner of Saul's robe. Even then, his heart smites him for doing that much.
He refuses to kill him.
Absolutely refuses. He tells his men, the Lord forbid that I should do this thing unto my master, the Lord's anointed, to stretch forth mine hand against him. His respect for the office, for God's anointed, is paramount.
And he confronts Saul afterwards.
Yes. He calls out to Saul from a distance, shows him the piece of his robe, proves he could have killed him but didn't. Saul is momentarily moved, calls David my son, acknowledges David is more righteous, and even predicts David will be king. There's a temporary reconciliation.
But it doesn't last.
Doesn't last.
Mm.
Later, in the wilderness of Ziph, David gets another chance. Saul is asleep in his camp, surrounded by his army, his spear stuck in the ground near his head.
David sneaks in.
David and his nephew Abishai sneak right into the heart of the sleeping camp. Abishai says, "God has delivered your enemy into your hand. Let me kill him with one stroke."
But David refuses again.
Again, destroy him not, for who can stretch forth his hand against the Lord's anointed and be guiltless? Instead, they just take Saul's spear and his water jar.
And confronts him again.
Yes, from a safe distance. David shouts, reveals he was there, shows the spear. Saul again acknowledges his sin, blesses David, and they part ways. These two instances are just incredible displays of David's restraint, his trust in God's timing, not taking vengeance himself.
Truly remarkable character under fire. There's also the story of Nabal and Abigail during this time, right?
Yes, another important episode showing David's character and how wisdom can avert disaster. David and his men had been in the area of Carmel, providing protection for the shepherds of a very wealthy man named Nabal. They hadn't harmed them or taken anything.
So when shearing time comes, a time of feasting, David sends some men to politely request provisions.
Right, a reasonable request, given the protection they had offered. But Nabal is described as churlish and evil in his doings. He insults David's messengers, basically asks, "Who is this David? Just some runaway servant." A huge insult.
And David doesn't take that well.
No, David is enraged. He gathers 400 men, straps on his sword, and intends to wipe out Nabal and every male in his household by morning. He's ready for bloodshed.
But Abigail steps in.
Abigail, Nabal's wife. She's described as intelligent and beautiful, the complete opposite of her husband. One of the servants warns her about Nabal's folly and David's impending attack.
So she acts quickly.
Very quickly, without telling Nabal. She gathers a huge amount of food and provisions. Bread, wine, sheep, grain, raisins, figs, loads them on donkeys, and goes out to meet David.
And she pleads with him.
Eloquently. She takes all the blame on herself, acknowledges Nabal's foolishness, his name actually means fool, presents the gifts, and crucially appeals to David's future kingship and his relationship with God. She urges him not to have the guilt of unnecessary bloodshed on his conscience when he becomes king.
A very wise appeal.
Incredibly wise. And David listens. He immediately recognizes the wisdom in her words and sees God's hand in her intervention. He praises her. "Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, which sent thee this day to meet me. And blessed be thy advice, and blessed be thou which hast kept me this day from coming to shed blood."
So disaster averted.
Disaster averted. David accepts the gift and sends her home in peace. About 10 days later, the text says, "The Lord smote Nabal, that he died."
And David marries Abigail.
Yes. After mourning Nabal, David sends her Abigail, and she becomes his wife. It shows David's willingness to listen to wisdom, control his anger, and trust God for justice, even when provoked.
There's one more crisis during this fugitive period, Ziklag.
Right. David, seeking refuge, had actually been living among the Philistines in Ziklag for over a year, deceiving King Achish into thinking he was raiding Judah when he was actually attacking other enemies of Israel.
A tricky situation.
Very. While David and his men are away with the Philistine army, though they get sent back before the big battle with Saul, the Amalekites raid Ziklag.
The same group Saul failed to destroy.
The very same. They burn the city and carry off all the women and children, including David's 2 wives, Ahinoam and Abigail.
Devastating for David and his men.
Absolutely. They return to find their homes destroyed, their families gone. The men are so distressed, weeping until they have no more power to weep, that they actually talk of stoning David, blaming him.
A real low point for David's leadership.
A true crisis. But the text says something crucial. David encouraged himself in the Lord his God.
He turns to God in his despair.
Yes. He calls for Abiathar the priest, uses the ephod to inquire of the Lord, "Shall I pursue this troop? Shall I overtake them?" And God answers, "Pursue. For thou shalt surely overtake them, and without fail recover all."
Divine guidance.
Exactly. So David and his men, though exhausted, pursue the Amalekites. They find an abandoned Egyptian slave who leads them to the Amalekite camp. They attack, defeat them, and recover everything, wives, children, spoil. Nothing was missing.
A dramatic rescue, and a testament to his faith even when his own men turned against him.
Absolutely. It shows his resilience and his reliance on God, even in the absolute depths of crisis.
Okay, so David has weathered these trials. Now, our deep dive takes us back to Saul, to the tragic end of his reign.
Yeah, it's a grim conclusion. Samuel, the prophet who anointed him and guided him, is dead. The Philistines are gathered again for massive battle at Shunem. Saul sees their army, is terrified. His heart greatly trembled.
And he tries to seek guidance from God.
He does. He inquires of the Lord, but there's only silence. The Lord answered him not, neither by dreams, nor by Urim, nor by prophets. Complete divine abandonment.
So, in desperation,
In sheer desperation, he turns to the very thing he himself had outlawed, necromancy. He disguises himself and travels by night to Endor to find a woman known to have a familiar spirit, a medium.
a shocking move for the king.
It shows how far he's fallen. He asks her to bring up the spirit of Samuel for him.
And she does, or seems to.
The text says Samuel's spirit appears, yes. Whether it was truly Samuel or a demonic imitation is debated, but the message delivered is terrifyingly accurate. The medium herself is shocked when she realizes it's Saul.
What does Samuel's spirit say?
It's brutal. He asks Saul, "Why have you disturbed me?" He confirms God has rejected Saul and given the kingdom to David explicitly, because thou obeyest not the voice of the Lord, nor executedst his fierce wrath upon Amalek.
And the final prophecy?
The final crushing blow. Samuel's spirit tells him, "Moreover, the Lord will also deliver Israel with thee into the hand of the Philistines, and tomorrow shalt thou and thy sons be with me." Death is foretold for the next day.
Saul must have just collapsed.
He did. He'd been fasting, he was already terrified, and this news utterly breaks him. He falls straightway all along on the earth.
And the prophecy comes true.
Tragically, yes. The next day, the battle on Mount Gilboa is a disaster for Israel. They flee before the Philistines.
And Saul's sons.
His 3 sons who were with him, Jonathan, Abinadab, and Melchishua, are killed in the fighting. Jonathan, David's beloved friend, falls.
And Saul himself.
He's badly wounded by archers. He sees the end is near. Not wanting to be captured, tortured, and mocked by the uncircumcised Philistines, he asks his armor-bearer to kill him with his sword.
Does the armor-bearer do it?
No, the armor-bearer is too afraid. So Saul takes his own sword, props it up, and falls upon it. Suicide.
And the armor-bearer follows him.
Seeing Saul dead, the armor-bearer then falls on his own sword and dies with him. A devastating end to the reign that started with such promise. Consumed by disobedience, jealousy, and despair.
What happens after the battle?
The Philistines find the bodies the next day. They cut off Saul's head, strip off his armor, sending his trophies to their temples, and they fastened the bodies of Saul and his sons to the wall of the city of Bethshan. A public humiliation.
But there's a final act of loyalty, isn't there?
Yes, a really poignant moment. The men of Jabesh Gilead hear about this desecration. These are the men Saul saved in his very first act as king from the Ammonites.
They remember his heroism?
They do. All the valiant men arise, travel all night, take the bodies down from the wall of Bethshan, bring them back to Jabesh, burn them, perhaps to prevent further desecration, and then bury their bones under a tree. They fast for 7 days.
A powerful, if tragic, tribute, showing that even in his failure, his initial leadership wasn't forgotten.
Exactly. A final, somber note of respect for the fallen king.
Wow. So we've really journeyed through this foundational, dramatic period. From Hannah's prayer, Samuel's calling,
To the rise and the really tragic fall of Saul, Israel's first king.
and then the emergence of David, this shepherd king in waiting, tested through immense trials.
Yeah, this deep dive, it really pulls out some profound insights, doesn't it, about, divine calling, the steep cost of disobedience, the complex, often flawed reality of human leadership.
And the power of things like loyalty, voice, Jonathan's loyalty, Jabesh Gilead's loyalty and faith, especially when everything seems stacked against you.
It shows how destiny kind of unfolds through both God's plan and the very real, very human choices people make. Choices that have consequences, for better or worse.
It really does. And these stories, Samuel, Saul, David, they raise questions that still stick with us, I think. Questions for all of us today.
Like when we're facing huge challenges or feeling that pressure to act, how do we know if we're following genuine guidance or just, our own impulses, our own justifications, like Saul did?
Right. And in a world that's still full of ambition, political maneuvering, human weakness, we see it all around us. Just like in these ancient stories, what does it actually mean to lead or even just to live after God's own heart?
That's definitely something to ponder as you navigate your own decisions, your own leadership moments, big or small, in your life.